Okay, hey, Michael Belkin of the Refusers here, and we just finished the Bainbridge Island July 4th parade doing our GMO song, Let's Roundup Monsanto. It was pretty good, felt pretty good to me. I was just dancing down the street playing guitar and singing. You have to ask the crowd, I'm the wrong person to ask. What am I wearing? I am wearing a corn suit because Monsanto makes mutant corn that gives you pesticide genes in your stomach and interferes with your digestion and causes cancer in rats. And that's why we're doing this. We're trying to make people aware so GMO labeling comes to pass. So when you go into the store not knowing what's in the food you're buying, you will know that it will be marked contains GMO ingredients, and then you cannot buy that food, and it will reward farmers who grow organically. So I think it will be a really positive feedback loop for non-GMO food. It's a way to put pressure on the companies like Monsanto and DuPont and Syngenta, particularly Monsanto is the most out front about it, to have them feel pressure from consumers, which they do not feel at all right now. So that's why we did this, to try to bring awareness to the people of Bainbridge Island about GMO labeling. And of course, Washington State has an initiative coming up for them to vote on that very subject. GMOs, yeah, well, you know, the Refusers are a health freedom band, and we have a lot of songs about pharmaceutical companies and things like that. I'd always avoided GMOs, and I started looking into it over the last 3 to 6 months. I started looking a lot more closely at the science and actually what was involved. And so, you know, the idea of eating a food that contains genes that make pesticides is just wrong, you know? I mean, people, you know, let me ask you, do you want to turn your body into a pesticide factory? I don't. I certainly don't want to turn my body into a pesticide factory. I want to avoid that kind of stuff. You know, I mean, we buy local, you know, from farmers markets and local growers as much as possible. So, so I'd say like my learning curve really accelerated in the last 3 months, and I wrote this song, Let's Roundup Monsanto, to try to inspire people. Of course, Roundup is their herbicide, and you know, as far as I can tell, the whole point of GMO corn is to enslave farmers so that you have to lease these seeds. You can't even replant the seeds from your own crop. You have to lease the seeds and get new seeds from Monsanto every year. And the only thing they seem to be good for is piling loads of chemicals on. That seems to be the point of herbicide. And you know, of course, it's like anything. If you use it too much, the weeds develop resistance, and that's exactly what's happening. So, you know, the FDA just raised a limit of Roundup that's in food, which I think is a total disaster. You know, so we're all walking around with this stuff in our bodies that the farmers are spraying on this GMO corn from Monsanto, and I mean, the whole thing is just really off the wall as far as I'm concerned. So we had a child die after getting a vaccine, and that was our first child within hours of getting a vaccine, and that sort of sent me down the road of learning about health things. And so we've gone on to have, now I have, as you saw in the parade, I have a son, 12 years old, who was the drummer, and a daughter, 9, Sebastian and Viola, and we do everything we can to feed them natural ingredients, organic, avoid sugar and corn syrup and all that kind of stuff as much as possible. So in our own little network, there are kids with neurological issues. Now that's I wouldn't say GMO is the only problem out there. We've got, you know, we're being bombarded with all directions from chemicals in pharmaceuticals and vaccines and et cetera, but if it's something you're eating every day, I think you reach a sort of toxic tipping point. There are a lot of kids with allergies and asthma, and this next generation of children that are growing up are being bombarded with loads of chemicals and GMO foods that just didn't even exist 10 or 20 years ago. So this whole thing is a big science experiment, and as my daughter's sign said, I am not a science experiment. That was my daughter Viola was carrying that sign through the parade. I'm just finishing up the book Seeds of Destruction by Engdahl, and it's just such a good book to tell you the perspective about where GMOs came from, and the perspective of, you know, this is not just something that came out of left field. It's a carefully crafted program by a cartel, as if you will, of very wealthy philanthropists and agribusiness. You know, they plotted how to create agribusiness, which is factory farming. You know, and it really doesn't have much to do with your health. It has to do with corporations making profits. Not even farmers. They've driven, you know, small farmers out of business and bought up their land and turned them into this huge mechanized operation that grows GMO corn and soybeans. And you know, if you go and look at a GMO corn or soybean field, it's just deathly. It's quiet. There's no birds. There's no bees. It's like a wasteland. You know, it's just everything's nice and green, but everything, they spray so many chemicals that nothing else lives except for these mutant plants that they have created to you know, to resist the chemicals. We did this song, Let's Roundup Monsanto. It's on the web. If you Google it, you'll see it's free download. You can listen to it and download it. We're not trying to make any money out of this. What we're hoping is it turns into a song that people sing at marches like this. Let's round up Monsanto and tell them where to go. Let's round up Monsanto, label their GMOs. That's what people, I hope people sing that, you know, when they're doing these marches for the initiatives that are going state by state. And you can listen to the verses, you know, all the lyrics and everything are online. We're the Refusers. We're on Facebook. We have a big presence on Facebook. We're the currently ranked number one in rock on Reverb Nation in Seattle. We're the #1 rock band out of 1,900 bands. And we just opened a rock concert down in Napa, Bottle Rock, for the Black Keys and the Black Crows and Kings of Leon, Joan Jett, X. There were just Macklemore. It was a really good lineup, and so we're starting to get a little bit of a national platform, and we're totally non-commercial. You know, I mean, that's why we're delighted to get gigs like this. You know, we don't have no record label would support the kind of songs that we write. So, but I think that I think people are fed up with what's going on in this country, and they're sort of lulled by a false sense of economic prosperity. And I think that I think we're moving in the direction. I think Monsanto, the protests against Monsanto, I think have the potential to turn into really raising awareness about a lot of corporate wrongdoing that's out there in the medical field and in the agricultural field and in food. Thank you very much for having me.